Good day, YouTubers, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from all around the world. We're going to work on some planking today. I got my boards ready here. Got several of these pre-shaped on the end, so when I put a pin in the end, when it splits, it doesn't get wider than the board, so that when we go over that seam with the next board, it doesn't give us a gap. So we'll be starting on this row here, and I'm going to get a liberal amount on that rib. And if we start there, we're going to end here. Then I got some boards on top that are already pre-shaped with the heating iron to wrap around that little corner in the front. So the leftover glue on the brush, and scrape some of it off onto the ledge of the board below it, so that when we stick this down here and put pins in it, see some glue sticking out now. Oh, get the same one in the same position. Sometimes them pins, when you go to stab them in, will bend a little bit. You can straighten them back out, but I did get a new box of pins, and I pulled all the ones out on this side that were down below here. Usually every other rib, or where I feel that there's a gap. So I'm going to put one on this rib here and then one on the end. Make sure that end stays up against the rib. You can see what I mean when that splits while you're stabbing that pin in there. That would open that up, and then it would be a high spot for the next board. So these are all ready to go on, but before we go to the next board, we gotta wipe some of that glue off. Now this has got a little bow there, so we'll add a pin on that. And another little trick I used, nice crisp edge mini screwdriver. Scrape that glue out of that corner, so when we go to put the next board on, that doesn't dry before we get there. And we're fixing to put this one on right now, so I'm going to leave the glue on this end. I want to add one more pin right here though. Make sure that stays up against the rib. So now, the little trickier ones, I took the grinder, the sanding wheel, this morning and knocked off this high spot there. So it was a bit too much. All this will get sanded later on, but it helps keep things in control as you go along. You see this rib here is sucking everything in a little bit. It looks like that one's going to be okay because this sucked it in enough. It's putting pressure on that. What really matters is here near the front. So before we do the middle part, we're going to get one right in there. And I'm pretty sure later on in the build there's going to be a layer of thin planking that's going to go over all this. Sometimes when I doubt that I've got a good surface contact, I'll add some glue in the back. Just to make sure that thing never comes loose. Clean off this top edge so the next plank doesn't have anything stopping it from going down onto the ribs. So that's sucked up good against that frame. Rib or frame or whatever you want to call it. So now we'll go back here and put a new one on. And just let it hang over the edge on the end, and later on that'll get cut off. I don't know how far I'm going to get today on this, but I'm going to try to at least get up to this lower deck. The more you put on the edges of these, the more it's going to squeeze out, so you don't need a whole lot. I usually put that pin in there at 45 degrees or so I can see, and so I'm at the right orientation to get that into the frame underneath there. And you don't want to grab them up too high, they'll bend over. Yeah, see how far that one went in? At least a couple millimeters. This styrofoam is a lifesaver to help work on the ship. Do we need one there? Another trick you can do, because the pins are all sacrificial anyway, if you got a board that's pulling back away from the frame because the pin is just slipping through it, you can push on that board and bend the pin over a little bit, and that'll keep that board up against the frame. So there's one board all the way across the starboard side. You can see how long that takes. So we got a seam here, but we're offsetting every other one. And then we got a seam here that we offset from the other side. And the same thing over there. So this next board, on the end here, we don't need to cut. But if we start a board offset from that one, on this center part, then over here on this end, before we install that board, we need to cut it to make it where it's halfway on that frame. So put a halfway mark there. And this is the quickest way for me. Other folks are going to do it different ways. Because we just freshly cut that, the sandpaper that's taped down on the table here, we'll clean that end off a little bit. And then check it again, making sure the starting point is right and the ending point is too much. So I want to cut off a little more of that, or I can sand off a little bit on this sanding table here. Check it again. Yes, that's good enough. So glue away. and dead end here. Oop, not there. It's easy to go too much on the glue. Try to get an even spread. Don't have to be real picky. Yeah, we're going to stop there, opposite of that seam. So let's install another one. And if we pre-fitted it and we start the pin in the right spot, it should work out. It should work out over on the other end. So it's fairly simple, other than the spots where you got those bends at. And I've pre-bent 4 of them. Looks like that'll work. And it's also a good practice to try to offset your pins so they're not in the way of each other as you clean the glue. Sometimes you can't help it, but just a minor detail. We want to get the glue out of this little pocket here. And this one. Because you don't know what you're going to do next. Let that glue sit there more than a couple minutes. It starts soaking into the wood and it's harder to get off. So we'll do the front part next here. You see I got two that are short and 2 that were long. We already put one of the long ones on. And that's because our seams are offsetting here. So we'll be using a short one this time. You know, pre-fit it to make sure we're pretty good. And even after you bend these with the heating iron, you can tweak them a little bit to a different shape. Make sure they're going to go in there right. Get some more pins out here on the table ready. Put some glue to it. The good thing about using a brush is you got a lot of glue on there all the way around. You can roll the brush to a different spot to get more glue. You don't have to keep going back to your glue supply. So once again, right there in the middle is sunk in a little bit. And it's a little high, so we're pushing it down. Oop. See how that pin sort of bent on me? It's okay. I've got another tray of pins here that are bent, which I'll use when I run out of these ones here. That's why you got to cock up on it where it's not too long on the end. You go to set that thing. It goes in where you want it. Doesn't need to go in far, just enough to hold that board up against there. This one's got a lot of pressure on it. And that end there looks good, so this is up against the front frame. We're done with that one. Okay. And my trash can in the way. It's long enough to reach. So you can see this is sort of gratifying because you're making headway, but at the same time it's very slow going because you got a lot of planks ahead of you. And even after we get this filled up to the top deck, we still got the whole bottom half of the ship to do on both sides. So yeah, there's a lot of boards to get on there yet. Imagine. See how much I've picked out of that one bundle already. But we're not anywhere near halfway yet. We got a long way to go. I don't know if all them boards are just for the planking, but sure is an awful lot of them in that bundle. Pin after pin after pin. You saw in the last video, there's probably 55 or 100 pins on that other side over there. Of course, I went from here all the way up, so if each board takes 4, 5, 6 pins, and we definitely want to put one. You see how that one is slipping through the neck of the pin? Push it in and bend it over. That didn't work because the pin wasn't in deep enough into that frame. was only in that far, so we're going to redo that one. Definitely needs some intervention. There, that pulled it up. And then put one near the end here. Like a so. So as you can see, we slowly trudge away. When that glue squeezes out on the frame above where your board's at, you want to make sure you wipe it off, because if you get a phone call or something and that thing's still got glue there, you're going to have to scrape it off with a razor knife. Get your board to lay flat on that. So, got another long one that'll go here. And then a short one on top of that. We just keep on going up. Keep on going up. I'm gonna spin this around. For those of you who watched the last video or two, see the boards on this side are done all the way up to the deck. We just got a lot of trimming and shaping to do to get them flush everywhere, and all these got to get cut off. Same thing in the front. So this one piece on top here, when I looked at the drawings, it almost seemed like it was a board standing on edge that had a taper to it. And I couldn't tell by the picture, but it almost covered up the top of these frame members. So I'm assuming, because the board's not wide enough for the thickness of that framing member to cover it, but the picture showed it was sort of covered. But it was taken from this angle. So I went ahead and laid the board on there perpendicular instead of flat on the rib or the frame member, and that did make it where it's flush with the back of the frame members in the inside. And then I'll just sand off the front here. So I don't know if that's right or not, but it seemed like it would be right to me. And when you're building your own ship, you can sort of do whatever you feel that you understand from the instructions is the right thing to do. Hopefully we're doing the right thing on that. We're getting there. What do you think? We got like 8 or 10 boards left. Here it is, the same day. I got some birdseed in that little teapot right there. And the cardinals and the jays love coming up here and getting a little morsel during the day when I get here. You can see up there those little boards I screwed on. There's one on each corner. I think there's a little male cardinal that sleeps up there at night. Sometimes there's two of them, one on each side. But I'm just plugging away here, one board after another. Got her worked up to the top almost. Got this railing on, round and notched in there. Match that side. Hopefully that's correct. This front end's all done. So I'm going to keep hooking on boards here and pinning them down. I already used half that thing of glue. And that's 2 buckets of pins. I'm down to a few bent ones. I might make it without having to pull all them out on the other side. There's a bunch over here too, but this is all dry, so we should have enough to finish this side though. We made it to the top. Woohoo! Well, that's another milestone, both sides. Up to the top deck. Now I think it's going to have us do some hatch covers. That'll be next. Got to pull all the pins out. Got one little bucket of pins that is bent, and one that is still straight. We're going to need a lot of pins on the bottom. After I pull all these pins out, and I'm going to start cleaning up all these overhangs everywhere. Which we got a whole bunch of them. Cut off and sand. But that's what we got to do. Let's see that we can do some of the rough work with this cutoff wheel. think that makes quick work of it. We just got a lot of it to do. And then we'll sand that later on with the sanding wheel. But yes, that will work. Yeah, this is working really good. So as you can see, get the zoom back out here. Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, that'll work fine. So we gotta do the front here and then the whole other side. You see, after we cut that off with the cutoff wheel, I went a little bit high so I can come back in and sand down to the deck like this without hitting the deck. So other than a lot of dust, it's working like a charm. I'm not going to get onto the hatch covers this week. We'll start on that next week. But that was the next thing after we get this sanded. So in the meantime, we did make a little progress this week on the Royal Sun. You know, on the box it says Cereal Royale, which is, I think it's French, maybe Italian. Yeah. It's stands for Royal Sun. So this is an update on the chicken coop. We got the other roof on, the other half of the roof, and then we started putting some panels here in the front, and then I made up a door with some wrap wire on it. Simple latch with a pull through on the other side. But I ran out of these big panhead screws and some other screws, so I got to get some more screws before I can continue. I'm depleting my supplies slowly but surely. Okay. I'm going to get some longer ones too, because these are just being, I only had a few of them short ones, and most of these are all long. But I had a few short ones I stuck in just to hold stuff until I get the long ones. But the chicken coop is coming along. We got the fence moved. And then the other thing I did this week was build this little fence around the compost pile. Same kind of latch so I can get in and out of here with the wheelbarrow or the wagon. And if we got chicken wire left over, we'll line these slats with some chicken wire to keep the compost contained. So you get a lot done this week on the ship and the chicken coop and the compost pile. We had some steak and we harvested some greens last night. Had some greens on our steak with a couple baked potatoes. The squash here are really booming out. Cabbage, sweet potatoes, green beans are taking off. Put a new basket on this tomato, put another string on the fence there to help hold up some of these plants. So, good accomplishments. Thanks for watching.